Welcome to Gaming Top Down. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. This is a two-player game that's kind of a newer, updated version of Seven Wonders Duel, which was a very, very popular and famous two-player version of Seven Wonders, which is a very, very famous card drafting game. So let's go down to the table. We'll go through my review, and then we'll come back up top for my final verdict. Okay, first up, we will look at how I store the game. This is a pretty straightforward storage solution since this box has a fairly nice and competent insert in the game. So underneath the rulebook and the Middle-earth board, there is this little kind of cardboard insert that holds everything really nicely. Has a tray for each of the three chapters of cards so that they stay separate, and underneath those are trays for the components for the Free Peoples of Middle-earth, components for Sauron's agents, and for the coins. Then there is a little well here for, well, actually two, for the 7 different landmark tiles, and they sit on top of the ring track, which nests in here. Snaps together like that. We'll see that in just a minute. And then this is part of that ring track. And then the rest of it just kind of nests down here. You got the Nazgul Black Rider piece here, and then the 3 tokens for each of the 6 different races. So that's really going to be pretty simple to store. Very, very nice kind of pre-made insert here. I do think it could have been stored in a box slightly smaller, but then this board would have had to have been a little bit smaller. So I don't really mind the trade-off here. The box is not very big. All right, I'm going to set the game up, and then we'll come back, talk about my favorite component and how to play this game. Okay, I've got the game all set up here. Really quickly, just wrapping up for my favorite component for this game. It has to be this ring track. It's gotten a lot of buzz and hype online. Okay, zoomed in here on it, you can see that one of the paths to victory in this game is if you're playing as the Free Peoples of Middle-earth, you want to get Frodo and Sam along this track all the way to Mount Doom. And if you are playing as the agents of Sauron, you are also chasing them on that track, and this is a piece on top of a piece that moves along the track this way, and if you can reach Frodo and Sam, then you win. This track just looks really cool, and it's fun to move. It could have been simpler and been like 2 tracks on this piece of cardboard, but the fact that they kind of chase each other here just kind of adds to the fun of the game. So that is going to be my favorite component here in the game. All right, going into gameplay and how you actually play this game, it's very straightforward. There are 3 different ways that you can win, and each win condition has to do with a different segment of the game. The first one we've already covered, and that is if you get to the end of the ring track as either player, then you immediately win because Frodo and Sam reached Mount Doom, or the Nazgul caught up with Frodo and Sam. So that's the number 1 way. You move up on that track by taking cards that are blue and have this ring symbol on the top, like this one here. The second way is to have control of all 7 regions of Middle-earth. That's shown here on this map board. And you can see both players start with some pieces out. The bad guys in Mordor, good guys in Arnor. And if you ever have a piece in all 7 regions, doesn't matter how many pieces and what type of piece, if it's a troop or a tower, if you have a piece in all 7, then you immediately win the game because you have kind of control and power in all 7 regions. The third way that you can win the game is by getting support of all 6 races in the game, and that has to do with these green cards. The green cards have a symbol up top. The symbol will match one of these symbols up here, kind of to match the hobbits, elves, dwarves, men, ents, and wizards. And if you have a card in your area with, or 6 cards, excuse me, with one each with a different symbol on them, then you win the game. So those are the 3 competing win conditions that you are going after. The way that you play is on your turn, you can do one of technically 3 things, but it's kind of 2. First, you can take a card. You can only take a card here from this kind of strange triangle if there are no other cards on top of it. So at the beginning, you can only take one of these bottom 6. So I could, for example, take this elf card because it gets me one of my 6 support races that I need support from to win the game. Some cards have a cost, however, and we can see on this card here, if I zoom in on Legolas a little bit, I can see there's a symbol there. It's a symbol for wisdom, I believe. I need one of those symbols in my player area in order to pay for that card. One player will keep their cards kind of next to them. The other player will keep their collection of cards next to them. And so if I did have a card maybe similar to this silver card, these are skill cards that had that book symbol, not this black ruse symbol, then I could use that symbol. You don't have to discard it. You just basically have to have that skill symbol in order to pay for Legolas. Instead, I could always substitute any skill I don't have for coins. So I could pay a coin to buy this Legolas card, for example. Or I could take any of these other ones. Maybe I want to get some skills to get ready to take better cards later. Maybe I want to move on the ring track or get to gold. As soon as a card is uncovered, it's immediately flipped. So you have to be careful. You might be flipping over a card that will really help your opponent. So taking a card, that's the first thing you can do. And kind of the last little note on that, you can always take a card and discard it immediately. And you get coins equal to the round number. You can see that there's a number 1 here. The cards in the second round of the game have a 2 listed here, and then the third round a 3. So you'll get 1, 2, or 3 coins for discarding something. You usually do that only if you need to deny the other player from taking something. So that's what you can do with a card. You either take it for its effect, and we'll go over, I'm going to swap the position of a couple of these in this example actually. Take a card for its effect or discard it in order to get some coins. The other thing you can do is to take a landmark tile over here, and that will let you put one of your towers out in that specific city. So there is one landmark token, or kind of, tile here for each of the 7 regions of Middle Earth. If I wanted to take this one though, it's pretty expensive. I need to have 3 courage, or that might be strength. I get the names mixed up. Skills, 2 leadership skills, and 1 knowledge skill. Here at the beginning of the game, I don't have any skills unless I've taken some of these silver cards. So if I was going to pay coins for that, I'd have to have 6 coins plus 1 extra coin for every other tower that I already have out. But if you were able to get one of these, it does a few things for you. You get to put a tower in that location. So this would be a tower here in Lindon, and that counts as a piece of mine in one of the 7 regions. And then you get some special effect from them as well. It might be to discard a card from your opponent's area, move up on the ring track, move a couple of your troops. This one lets you look at 2 of these kind of passive ongoing skill tokens and choose one. So really, really helpful landmark tiles over here if your goal is to win through the map, because these towers can usually not be removed from the board. So those are the only 2 things you can do on your turn. For the different kinds of cards, we've kind of mentioned the blue ones, they'll move you up on this track. Yellow ones give you gold. The silver ones will give you a skill of some type that you will just stack in your area. And use those skills to pay for either these landmark tiles or for cards that have a cost going forward. There are also red cards, these red cards let you put troops out in one of the two regions shown there, and you can't split them up. So if this had a 2 here, I'd get to put 2 troops in either Lindon or Arnor. Some cards have this symbol up here. That means that there is kind of a partner card later in the game, where if I have this one, that card coming up will have that matching symbol in an area right here, and I can use this card to pay for this one for free without having to pay any of the other costs associated with it. And I think that is all of the types of cards in the 3rd chapter of the game. So I guess I should say there are 3 rounds or chapters in the game. This is the 1st chapter, and you'll be taking cards from this pyramid. In the 2nd chapter, you do an upside down pyramid. So kind of flip this over, and it'd be the other direction. And in the 3rd chapter, it kind of makes a ring symbol. The 3rd chapter also introduces these purple cards that are kind of the war cards that basically let you move on the map with this arrow symbol, do some harmful things to your opponent, remove a troop, make them discard a coin. And I think those are only in the 3rd chapter. So that is all of the types of cards. They get progressively stronger. As you can see, this card has quite a cost. You need 4 different symbols in order to take this card, or pay coins to make up the difference. But they get better and better. You're moving 2 spots on the ring track, 5 coins, putting out 3 troops instead of the 1 we looked at a minute ago. So the cards are better, but they are definitely more expensive in the later rounds of the game. As you are taking these green cards, eventually you're going to have probably 3 different symbols. That means you've gathered support of 3 of the 6 races in the land. And so you get to look at the top token of whatever 3 races those are. There are 3 of these special race effect tokens for each of the races. And when you flip some over, you get to choose which one you want to keep, and then you put the others back on top of their stacks. And they have some cool, like, kind of game-breaking effects. For example, this one with the elves, whenever you play a yellow card, you get to take another turn immediately. So I'd be much more likely to take these, like this card, but my opponent would also be much more likely to try to deny me those when possible. So those effects are really nice. There are some that let you place out units wherever you want on the board instead of having to follow these region guidelines. This Hobbit one is very powerful. This eagle symbol counts as one of your 6. So then you only have to have 5 different races on your green cards because the 6th symbol is on this token. And in the 3rd round, the Ents and the Wizards come out and they just do one-time effects, like giving you another turn immediately, removing an enemy's tower, I guess it's called a fortress, moving twice on the ring track. So those are some really powerful and cool kind of passive effects that once you get, you'll have for the rest of the game. And they do change how the game plays from play to play. I think a lot of the variability comes from the combination and randomness of which of these is going to come out. So you get to take one of those whenever you get 2 of the same symbol. So if I had both elf cards, there are only 2 of each race in the entire game. So if I had both elf cards, I'd get to take the top 2 of the elf stack, look at them, choose one. Or when you get 3 different races, then you get to take the top 1 of those 3 stacks and choose one of those. Coming back up here to this board, it also acts as the tiebreaker. If at the end of the game, none of the 3 win conditions have occurred, no one has earned the support of all 6 races by having these symbols on green cards, no one has gotten to the end of the ring track, and no one has, or neither player, I should say, has a piece in all 7 regions of Middle Earth, then whoever has a piece in the most regions will be the winner. Doesn't matter how many pieces, so you could have, that would be 4 regions for the yellow player, for example. So this board is the tiebreaker at the end of the game if the others have win conditions have not taken place. So it's really a pretty quick game. You just take a card, put it in your area, and then your opponent takes a card and you just go back and forth, trying to be careful not to reveal something that they may really want, and making sure also that you are getting the cards that you want. Okay, coming here to my favorite part of the game. I like quite a few things about it, so it's a little tricky to decide, but I do think that these race effects from these tokens up here that you'll only get a couple of during the game it's probably the most exciting point of the game, because you get some cool, unique, asymmetric ability that your opponent will not have, and then they have to try and block you from that kind of the rest of the game. So they really do kind of shake up the game in that moment when you get them. Really a fun kind of wrinkle on what is otherwise a pretty balanced and straightforward card drafting game. So I think these race effects are my favorite part of the game. All right, so we've gone over gameplay. Let's get into my review. As you know, I use the David's framework here on the channel. And so first up, we have game duration. And for duration here, the box says 30 minutes, I believe, and I think that's right about on the money. The first couple rounds, well, probably just the first round, you can play in probably 5 minutes. It goes really fast. You're just taking cards back and forth, and you're not really too worried. You know, if someone moves up a couple spots on the ring track, it's not the end of the world. You're not really afraid of them. But in the second and third chapters, it escalates a little bit, and you're a little more wary of, okay, I can't let them take this green card, or I can't let them take the ring card because they're getting dangerously close. So first round, I would say, is probably 5 minutes. Second is probably 10, and third is probably 15 on average. The third can be a little swingy because the game almost always ends in that third round, and it could be early in that third round, but it's generally towards the middle to the late round. So I think the duration is really good. This isn't trying to be a heavy game. So the 30-minute playtime, I think, goes perfectly with what they're trying to achieve. I don't think it should be longer for what it is. If there was a bit more asymmetry and kind of more complexity, then I would want it to be 20 minutes longer, just to really sink your teeth into that kind of complexity and extra bits going on. But since there's really not, and it's meant to be a fairly light and easy game for people that like Lord of the Rings or have liked Seven Wonders to get into, I think it strikes a really good balance of being about 30 minutes, and that's a good time frame. Okay, next up are the aesthetics. I think this game is very, very pretty. The artwork is done by Vincent Dutray, who does some of the most beautiful artwork in board games for sure. And I really like his kind of grounded approach to characters that, if you like this fantasy world from J.R.R. Tolkien, then you're pretty familiar with. Like Legolas here, just looking a bit different than normal, and the Gollum cards are, he doesn't look especially different, but they're just very, very pretty cards. And yeah, it's just fun to see a different take that is faithful, but also a slightly different interpretation than just the same old Peter Jackson, Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn take. So really love the aesthetics. I think the game is very pretty. The iconography is super easy to understand and read. The only tricky part is there are, how many is that? That's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. There's 18 different tokens here for these race effects. And so I'm really glad that they included this kind of player aid here that goes over what each of them do, because you won't see even half of them. You'll probably see about a third of them in a given game. And so it's hard to remember what all of these symbols mean from game to game, but because of this, it makes it really easy to just have this sitting out, and it will just be there when you need it. So really high marks here for aesthetics. And again, this track is just so cool. It could have been something simpler, but the fact they went with a transparent track on top of a track, and kind of this cool plastic as opposed to just another cardboard track, just really adds to the vibe here. I really like the screen printed meeples. These ones are orcs for the Sauron character, and the towers look really, really cool. So yeah, aesthetically, I think the game is a really good success. Okay, variability. This is where I struggle to know exactly how much staying power this game will have. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the variability I've noticed in my quite a few plays at this point is from these race effect tokens. Getting, like the one I mentioned earlier, one of these that lets you move up a space or take an immediate second turn whenever you take a yellow card really changes your strategy, and you shoot for those like crazy. Whereas if you get this Hobbit one with the eagle symbol, then your focus is probably going to be on the green card. So they are pretty swingy in kind of changing up your strategy. But the base strategy set here and rule set is fairly simple, and I don't know if limited is the right word, but limited in scope maybe, so that you really can't get too far from kind of the guardrails that this game has set up, which again, I think is good for the weight of the game this is trying to be. I don't expect this to be as, crazy asymmetric as Root or War for the Ring or anything like that. This is a much lighter game, so it's hard for me to knock it too much. The two downsides I see with variability, the game does seem to almost always end at the same point. Just about the second to third row of cards in the third chapter being left, so you've got like 5 cards left in the deck, seems to be almost always where it ends. Makes for a kind of a cool climax to the game, but it makes it seem a little like predictable, and has made me think, are my decisions making a very big difference if, the cards I took in chapter 1, if the game is always kind of ending at the same climax point towards the end. The game is ultra balanced, it seems. And that kind of leads me into my next slight negative for me, is I do wish there was a little bit more asymmetry between the two factions. The Sauron character starts first and starts with 2 coins, and the Free People go second and starts with 3 coins. But other than that, there is no difference between playing the two different sides. And again, I can't knock it too much for that, just because it's trying to be a light game, and having 2 different rule sets would have made it harder to teach and harder to get new players into. So I can't ding it too much, but just again, for kind of its staying power, I worry that the variability might not be quite exciting enough, for me to want to play this game 30 times. But maybe, I don't know. I probably need a little more time there, but that's a slight knock I have for the game at this point, is on the variability and the two factions seeming basically identical, other than who is going to go first. All right, for innovation, I don't think the game is incredibly innovative in any way, but I think one of the things that it does really well is to take a few different pretty well-known mechanisms in hobby board gaming. You've got area control, track movement, and open drafting, and combines them into a pretty light and simple game with a great theme. So I won't say it's like innovative really, but it's not trying to break new ground especially. It's trying to be a good entry point for people that like the theme, that want a good 2-player game that they can play with their, friend or significant other, and see if, maybe hobby board gaming is something that they want to get deeper into. So not really a knock for innovation here. I don't think it is particularly innovative, other than I haven't seen, a transparent track on top of a track before. But that's more of an aesthetic touch as opposed to a gameplay innovation. So that's it for innovation there. For decision space, does the gameplay itself, again, coming back to that idea of, I feel like sometimes because the game is so well balanced, it feels like we're always funneling to the same conclusion. But it's a fun conclusion. It feels like watching The Lord of the Rings again, and you know what's going to happen in the movie, but you're enjoying it all the same because it's so well done along the way. In this one, either player can technically win, but they're going to win at about the same spot. I don't even know if it's really possible to win in the first 2 chapters. Definitely not in the first one, I don't think. Maybe in the second one, but I think the other player would almost have to be asleep and make some of the most dumb decisions ever. I think it will almost always end in the third chapter and probably mid to late third chapter. So yeah, decision space, it's you're having fun. You're making light and simple decisions of which card do I want to take? What do I want to make sure that I don't leave for my opponent, which aren't incredibly, deep decisions. But again, for the weight of this game, I think it's a good amount of decision space. I think my favorite part actually of the decision space is where to deploy and then later to move your troops along these lines. I didn't actually mention this, but when your troops get into a region with the enemy, really simple combat, they die 1-to-1. So if I was to move these two troops, for example, from Rohan to Enidwaith, one of them would die along with this one, and then the second one would be left there controlling that region. So again, it's very simple area control and movement, but it's fun to move the pieces around to the different regions, and which one do I think they'll get a tower on, and can I get a tower somewhere that I'm struggling to get a troop, because towers are almost impossible to remove. There are only a couple of ways that can even happen. So yeah, I think the decision space is again good and right for this weight of game. And then last up, we've got the smoothness of the game. I think that's one of its best attributes, is how smooth it is. You take a card or a landmark tile, and you can either use the card or discard it. And if you get a landmark tile, then you'll put out one of your towers. The cards have different effects that might have you put out troops or move on a track or get some coins, but that's really it. And because your decision there is pretty small, I really think you could play this with almost anyone. So smoothness to complexity ratio, I think, is really, really great for this game. All right, that's going to do it here for the top-down section of my review. So let's go back up to me, and we'll give some final thoughts and a verdict on this game. Okay, I really, really like this game. I think it does everything almost perfectly. It's really simple to teach. I think you could teach it to almost anyone. The turn structure is very simple. It's light, it's fun, it's got a great theme, great artwork. The only couple of things that I would knock it, for me personally, as a gamer that prefers games that are a little bit heavier, but that I wish it had a little more variability and asymmetry between the two factions. And I don't know, because of how similar they are, how many times I'm really going to want to play this. Am I going to get into the 30s, 40s, 50s? I'm not sure at this point, but every time I have played it, it's been fun. It has kind of a funneling climax there in the third chapter where everything kind of comes together, and it's a fun who's going to get the last card that they need. So I really do enjoy this one. That is the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. I'm going to give this game an 8.5 out of 10, which for me is a gold trophy here from Gaming Top Down. Thanks so much for watching this review. Let me know what you think of this game down in the comments. I'd love to hear if you've played it, if you've played Seven Wonders Duel, how you think they compare, and what maybe some of your other favorite two-player games are. Thanks so much for watching this review, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching this video. As most of you know, Gaming Top Down is an independent endeavor. I don't accept money from publishers for previews or opinion-related content. But there are a few ways that you can support the channel and help me keep the lights on. Liking this video and subscribing to the channel helps me to grow. If you're thinking of getting a game that I covered in this video, please click the affiliate link in the description of this video. It helps to support me and doesn't add any cost to your purchase. I also do a weekly gaming podcast where I talk about the board games that I'm playing along with my brother. You can check that out on Apple's podcasts and on Spotify. And you can also get that podcast 3 days early over on our Patreon. You can follow the Patreon at patreon.com/supergamebrothers completely for free. But if you do support us over there, you get some extra perks, like being able to write into the show, getting early access to the show, voting on the games that I'm going to cover and review, and lots of other fun stuff. Thanks so much for your support, for liking and commenting on my videos. You really are what helped keep the lights on for me. Thank you.